Hello, America. Welcome to the Voice of Freedom Radio, the voice of rural America, and the State of Jefferson movement, which gives you liberty and freedom. Our studios are located in Alturas, California, right in the heart of Modoc County. Our environmental message is the 3 C's plan: clean air, clean water, and common sense. We cherish our Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and will not give up our God, guns, property rights, or any of our freedoms. I am Doug.
And I am Ross.
And I'm Anthony. Well, today, Doug, I think we need to talk about property rights and what that really means. And I think we need to talk, Ross, about what it means to what's going on in our neck of the woods, what we're seeing here in Northern California, in the West, and in the country in general.
Well, Anthony, you're absolutely correct. What we're seeing, especially up in Burns, Oregon, is people are finally realizing that the government is trying to usurp their rights to property.
Yeah.
And my opinion is we're at a cusp in this whole argument of property rights and individual rights and the right to liberty. As the Constitution was founded, it is emphatic that the citizens of the country control the country. And over the decades, this has evolved into just the opposite situation. But going back to rights, I feel that with the environmental movement and the property rights movement conflicting, we are going to see an evolution. And how that evolution comes out, I pray that it's a stronger America.
Well, Ross, let's go back to the cause of this problem, why the government of the United States is doing what they are doing to the ranchers and farmers in the rural areas. Number one, the basis of what they're trying to do was signed off in 1992 by George Herbert Walker Bush. It was the treaty, the environmental treaty in Rio. Now, what was the conditions in that treaty that the environment in the United Nations wants the American people to sign off on? The American people are being forced to sign off on that treaty. And what was the sum of the conditions?
Yeah, list them.
Number one, in there, which is unsustainable, which you cannot have, is you have no personal property rights, period. Number two, you have no rights to dams and also reservoirs. Number three, and here's where it hits up there in Oregon and all of the rural areas with the ranchers and farmers. In that treaty, the U.S. government wants to take and enforce this. There is no livestock grazing on the biodiversity. What is the biodiversity? It's Mother Earth. So they want us off of the land. That tells them right there. Now, who in God's creation in America want to give up their personal property rights? Number two, who wants not to have grazing of livestock? Number three, who does not want to have more dams and reservoirs, so give us clean energy and promote Mother Nature? That person is the President of the United States of America. And Anthony?
Well, you're saying that he's carrying out a foreign agenda, one that is entirely contrary to the concepts embodied in our Constitution.
That's exactly right.
But Doug, let's not lose sight of the entire United States of America. Those who are living in cities and towns across the nation may not realize that the loss of their rights may include the ability to paint your house whatever color you desire.
Yeah.
Rights, folks, are being assaulted on all levels. And we need to stand up and protect our rights and our Constitution.
Well, let's go back to the Founding Fathers, Ross.
Yes.
You read what Thomas Jefferson had to say when he was drafting the preamble and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. He wrote originally that we are entitled to life, liberty, and property.
Yes.
But there were some in the Constitutional Congress that objected to the term property. So they substituted the pursuit of happiness, which they all understood meant the property. Property is the basis of one's ability to live, one's ability to provide a living. We've moved away from that in our world today, so we don't understand the value of property. Somebody that lives in suburban America and has a quarter of an acre of ground around his house or less, they don't, they think it all comes from the grocery store. Children grow up saying, well, I don't want to see cows die. I just want to buy my beef at the grocery store, or milk. Where does milk come from? It comes out of a bottle, right?
Don't you know that?
Yeah. So the point is, you go back to what the Founding Fathers said, property was everything. And here's how it works. You are endowed, as Jefferson wrote, by your Creator with these unalienable rights. And the rights are life. Nobody can take your life from you. That's wrong. Liberty, no one should be able to take your liberty from you. And thirdly, they should not be able to take your property, nor tell you what you are supposed to do with your property. That is the opposite agenda to the one that was outlined by our Founding Fathers. And most people don't realize that today. Doug?
How does that apply, Doug, to this issue going on up in Harney County, Oregon? What's happening up there with our rights?
Good point. What's the government doing to take away their rights up there?
Okay. Before I answer that question, there's number 4 that they don't want us to have.
Oh.
It's called tilling of the soil. That's agriculture.
Yeah.
Tilling of the soil. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a website. And on our website, you can see BLM setting fires on open range where ranchers and farmers in Harney County have their cattle, and the cattle are being burnt alive. Is this... yes.
Well, BLM's trying to deprive, put it in words like this.
Go ahead.
BLM is trying to deprive the private property owner of his rights. BLM is trying to dictate to the private property owner how he will manage his property, what is done with it, and all the rest. Now, if BLM makes a mistake, well, that's okay. That, we're just human. But you are the servants. That's what they say to the public. You are the servants, and you will do what we tell you to do. And that's turning the tables 180 degrees from what our Founding Fathers intended.
To go back to what you were talking about a moment ago, Doug, the burning of livestock in Harney County. They also burnt a beautiful home.
You better believe it.
Without notifying the owners of that home or the owners of the livestock what they were about to do and why they were about to do it. The malintent is obvious.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can see all of this, all of it, on our website. And it's www.thevoiceoffreedomradio.com.
Right. Thevoiceoffreedomradio.com.
That's right. The reason why BLM is doing this and all government agencies is because the President of the United States, in executive orders, is out there to force the American people to comply to the Agenda 21 deal in Rio. And he has given executive orders to inform all of his cabinet members to do this. Go ahead, Ross.
Well, Doug, you mentioned conform. It's not conform, it's control. We have the federal government moving to control every aspect of our human lives. We have not only the BLM taking control of our land, we have the IRS taking control of our finances. We have the EPA taking control of the very air we breathe. It is all about control.
Well, and it's if they were doing nothing but positive things, that'd be lovely. But what happens is that when you get a political agenda behind that kind of power and it turns those forces in the wrong directions, then you've got trouble. That's why we should never have created these alphabet agencies. But let me talk about property again. Let's get back to property.
Okay.
It's so important. Property, we recognize, as was stated by the founding fathers in the Constitution, we recognize the importance of private property, and we recognize the importance to our personal rights, to our own personal welfare, our well-being, that of our loved ones. The interesting thing is that Jefferson equated the two, saying that we have a right to property, but that our rights are part of our property. Mm-hmm. Our personal rights are part of our property. And having someone outside of your influence telling you what to do is tyranny. It's coercion. It's misusing power. They know better what you're supposed to do with your land than you do. They're putting themselves above you and therefore taking away your rights, which are your property.
You're right, Tony. You're exactly right. The only problem we have today is we have the government in our country, in Washington, D.C., that's anti-American, and they want to run us off the land. And also, the fact is that the people up in Harney County, the patriots that's up there, so many people, the environmentalists, and even our local newspaper here calls them fools. All they're trying to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to get national attention so we can get this corrected. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and it's a pleasure to introduce one true patriot that used to live in Cedarville over in Surprise Valley. He is well respected. He's loved by many. And he is part of the Voice of Freedom Radio. And also, he is the webmaster for the voiceoffreedomradio.com.
The website.
The website. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and a pleasure, once again. Mike Small, our friend, your friend. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Doug. Thanks for the introduction. It's a little too much, but we can go from there anyway. I'd also like to say hello to my old friends and customers and family that are in Surprise Valley and on the other side of the hill in Alturas all the way up to New Pine Creek. You sure had a good, prosperous New Year and hopefully it's a good, wet New Year. Don and I really miss everyone. We miss the city, the county, everybody that's up there.
Well, Mike, you still have your home over in Cedarville. I know we went over there many times when you was living over there. We had a lot of good conversations, and also you was over there and was active in the Tea Party that was in Surprise Valley over there.
That's right. Sorry the Tea Party isn't still going over there. You're correct. I do have a home in Cedarville still, and my heart would love to come up there. I have a couple daughters down here that are fighting me, though, as probably a lot of you realize. So anyway, it was very nice being up there and having our meetings sometimes there.
Well, Mike, tell us. You know that we're up here in Northern California. We're fighting the federal government that's trying to run the ranchers off of our property up here. Do you have any examples down there where you live? You're down there around the community of Riverside. What's happening down there?
Well, Riverside, as you know, is right 60 miles east of Los Angeles. There used to be cities that you could call out as you drove down the highway, and now it's just going from one big city to another without knowing what the boundaries are. You talk to people that are, up north, everybody knows BLM. They have families, they have friends, they know people in BLM, they know people in the Forest Service. It's totally different down here. I was talking to a neighbor about BLM the other day, and he thought I was talking about Black Lives Matter.
Hey, Mike, you okay?
They have no idea what BLM is or what the Forest Service is. We don't have that much contact with any of the government agencies, unless you happen to be an RVer and you like to go out with your motorcycles or your 4x and hit the sand dunes, and then you have to pay them a fee. But and you want to go camping up in the mountains, the National Park Service is up there. But it's a very different situation here. They have no idea of what the problems are, or what their agenda is, or anything, and it can be a
Well, Mike,
very confusing.
Mike, excuse me for a minute, but it wasn't too long ago that Riverside was farming community.
Riverside has been an agricultural city since before the turn of the last century.
So it's a picture of what could happen up in Harney, Oregon.
Oh, sure. Yeah. What happened here was that all of the orange groves were turned to housetops, and we became a bedroom city for Orange County, and now we have a lot of the businesses here, and the old agricultural areas over in the old Sunnymead area are no longer no longer agriculture. They're now houses for people to come to Riverside to go to work.
Well, you point up an interesting thing here, Mike. Part of the problem that we're having in the state of California is the bulk of the population is in the southern counties, in the areas near and around where you are. Those people have no concept of the difficulties that face ranchers and farmers up in the north counties. We really are a schizophrenic state, if you will. We have very different goals and very different outlooks on life, depending on whether we live in the north or the south. And your description of what it's like living down there just simply goes to that fact. And it points up the necessity, I think, that we have of getting behind this state of Jefferson and getting the problems corrected. We're like this state is like a crazy person. 1 minute they're in one position, the next minute they're in the next, and frankly, it's like this split personality that's going on. That's why I use the term schizophrenia. And part of them are crazy, and the ones of us that aren't don't want to have anything to do with the ones that are. So, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, very well said.
Hey, Mike, down there, they got a lot of desert down there, and how is those ranches down there coming out there in that desert? Have you got any examples of what's happening?
Let me tell you a story that happened. I have a very close friend who has property out in the East Mojave Desert, out in the East Mojave Preserve, and which has been legally changed to the Desert Wilderness Act of 1994, and now they changed it again to the Desert Wilderness Act of nothing. Anyway, there's about 400,000 acres out there that the BLM wanted. They took one of the biggest ranches out there. It's called the OX Ranch, owned by the old Overtons, and by the way, the OX Ranch at the time was the largest single cattle ranch in California, and they went through there and said, "No, we're going to have to take away all of your grazing rights. Your cattle are breaking Indian head arrows," and they stuck, and they got their property. They couldn't do anything about it, and they finally just sold to the BLM and moved to Texas. Then a friend of mine that lives there, out in the middle of that thing, had a black SUV come rolling up on his property, and these four men jumped out of the car. They're in full military gear with armored vests and M16s hanging on their shoulders and around their neck, and they wanted to know what he was doing there. And he said, "Well, this is where I live, and by the way, do you have written permission to be on this property?" And they said, "Well, no. What do you know about that?" And he says, "Well, I'm an active police officer right now, and you're on my property. And I don't remember giving you written permission."
Well, Mike, that's actually basically what's happened here in Northern California and also up in Harney County in Oregon.
Boy, it sure has.
Up there, that refuge, if the people needs to come in and investigate how many farms in the last 15 years up there that were in a operational, in other words, they was operating up there, the cattle ranches. How many of those ranches are in the same ones that are up there today? They need to go in and check out the local judge up there, and they just need to take and go in, investigate, because all we want is the truth. And that land up there in Harney County, BLM controls most of it. They control the refuge, and the ranchers are leaving, and now most of the people up there, the only employment they got is BLM employment. And so it's sort of like MODOK. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, it's clear the agenda of the government now, using BLM and Forest Service and any other agency they can, is to intimidate and cow the owners, force them into a situation where they can no longer use their land, and then force them to sell out. And that way the government buys more and more property. The government's got no right. If Thomas and Jefferson were alive today, he would be appalled that the government owns any land in this country. But,
well, Anthony and Mike, don't lose perspective. Today, a landowner has to ask permission to drill a well.
Yeah.
To plant a row of corn. That's not right.
No, it's not right.
But when the federal government has possession illegally of land, they have no restrictions. They can mine it, which in the case of Harney County may be the case. They can do anything they wish without impediment.
Well, that's why the environmentalist movement has commandeered the power of government. There's only one power in this world that's greater than individual power, and that is the collective power of the government. So if you want to get something done, if you can get the government on your side to see your point of view, you can use the power of government. They're the biggest, they got the most guns, they got the biggest bully on the block, and they can push people around. And it's obvious that in the recent years, they have no compunction, no shame in trying to force the people off their land.
But Tony, here's the thing. The government who wants to initiate all of this because it's in a treaty. It's there. You can read it. You can see it. They are using the environmentalists to do their dirty work for them.
Correct.
That's right. And one of the biggest people out there that's doing the dirty work for them is the Center for Biological Diversity. They're out of Arizona. Their staff comes down to about 35 to 40 people, and most of them is attorneys. But here's the biggest thing. The ranchers, most of them around here, and we're trying to inform them for the last 3 to 4 years, they don't realize. They look to the government for guidance and to trust them. But it's the government that wants to run them off the land.
Well, I was talking to a rancher today, local rancher, earlier this week anyway.
Don't mention his name.
I won't. But what happened is he commented to me, the forestry people and the BLM people used to be our best friends. They'd help us round up the cows if they got out, help us get the strays. They'd help us with the fences. They did everything they could to help us with our ranching. So to begin with, they were our friends. But now that we've got a new political agenda in the country, now those people are being used against the ranchers.
Also, on Fox, Lou Dobbs.
Oh, quite a man.
That man is something. It's on our website. He is talking to Greg Walden, the Republican up there that's in charge of that county, one of his counties. He tells Mr. Walden, because the U.S. prosecuting attorney by the name of Amanda Marshall. Look it up, folks. Go to Google. Put in Amanda Marshall, U.S. attorney. She is fired. Can you imagine Obama administration firing one of their U.S. attorneys?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't take effect until May 15th, so she's still there to do some damage, I think.
And Mike, you've got that on our website, and you've heard Lou Dobbs tell Greg Walden, which gives a good explanation, but he still won't tell the people all the truth about what's going on in the government. He just says that they're hard to work with. Yeah, they're hard to work with. All of these politicians in Washington, D.C. knows about this one world order.
Absolutely.
And if you go to our website, it's Rural Enemies, and you go down and you get on the environmental. What's that down there on the long green deals? That's the specific. What is that, Mike?
Oh, hold on a second. I don't have a memory that's going to let me do that.
Okay. Anyway, you can go on our website and you can hear Nancy Pelosi. You can see her standing in the well of the House, October the 2nd, 1992. And Elliot out of New York introduces her. What is she doing? She is running and carrying HCR 353 through the House. That's the legislation that says that the United States needs to adhere all of the conditions of the environmental treaty in Rio. That's what it is. And again, am I right, Mike?
You're absolutely right.
Expand on that just a little bit, Mike, if you can.
I said you're absolutely right.
No, can you expand on the subject about that Rio thing in 92?
Oh, yeah. First of all, before the 92, it was 1990, when George H.W. Bush stood before the House and started talking about one world order. And people, from reports, many of the congressmen were in absolute awe that something like this was being brought out, especially by President Bush, who was supposed to be a nice Republican conservative person. Then in 92, he went to Rio de Janeiro for the whole program of Agenda 21, and he signed for the United States, along with about 140 40 other.
178, Mike.
Pardon?
178 governments signed off on it.
Yeah, that's right. And now it was never ratified by the Senate, but it has been the whole plan has been worked on since then. This OX Ranch thing in the Mojave Desert was in 1994 when President Clinton was president. And so you can see how they've been implementing each stage of the plan. And now they're implementing the execution stage of it by just literally going after people like the Hammonds and not caring what's said about it.
Well, Mike, in 1992, President Clinton gave a emergency executive order. He there created the program for sustained development, to where that he passed this off to all of his cabinet members that they need to make the people conform to the one world order.
That's correct.
And even up in Washington State, the lady that's the head of the Washington Farm Bureau up there has got enough gall and enough whatever she has to come out and tell the truth. In Washington State, the BLM has burnt over thousands and thousands and thousands of acres up there, and they set these back burns, and it burns out the people's private property. It burns out the grazing rights on the property that the farmers and ranchers have got leased. And yet, for the Hammonds to be sentenced to 5 years in a prison on terrorism, when the President of the United States will not even mention the word terrorism, period.
Even with the actual terrorists.
No, he won't do that. But yet, these people set a backfire, and because of lightning, supposedly up there, and then the 3%ers out of Idaho supposedly have a person that's documented it, certified it, that it wasn't the lightning that hit that, it was a BLM, the man that witnessed that. And then the Hammonds set a fire to actually burn the old grass off and weeds and everything, and it got off onto the BLM land, the ones that they actually had for their cattle for grazing. And yet the BLM pushed it, the U.S. attorney pushed it, the people that was running that refuge pushed it, the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. pushed it, and for 139 acres with no damage to speak of, the people are in prison for 5 years. And if you go to our website, folks, and you look at that, and you see where the BLM was burning the land up there in French Glen, it's on there. And look at how much land they burnt. It was hundreds and hundreds of acres. You can see the cattle that's being burnt. They're in a corral. You can see BLM out there with their drip deals lighting fire 100 feet from that corral. And they get nothing. Where the heck, what country are we living in now?
You're saying there's no justice?
Well, another point up there in Harney County, I believe it's the local fire chief found FBI agents disguised as protesters agitating the citizens in a Safeway market in downtown Harney.
You're right, Ross. That fire chief, he came on in 1984, and when he found this out, and they were there, they was down by the armory, a couple of them, it was reported.
This is FBI, folks.
Yep. And they said, the fire chief said, what are you doing here? This is all a video.
Well, this sounds like stuff that might go on in a third world country. It has no place in the United States of America. Using the FBI to surveil, to stir up sentiment one way or another. That's supposed to be an investigative agency, period. There's such an egregious, meaning awful use of power in all of this. It just turns my stomach. I don't know how you feel about it, Mike, but
well, I've seen that video. I've seen another video. I think I put it on the website, but it shows where the Idaho people came up to the one of the barns, and it's where the FBI is holed out, and a whole bunch of them came out in tactical gear, M16s, vests, helmets, the whole 9 yards, and the Idaho people were talking with them, trying to find out, what their purpose was, what their mission was, and when you see them with all of the military gear on, you have to wonder what their real plan is, especially with those guys that are stationed at the preserve out there.
Yeah, they're anticipating a negative reaction because they know in their heart of hearts, if you will, that, or at least their leaders do, that what they're doing is overstepping the bounds of individual rights, and they're trying to use the power of government that they have, arms, making their employees virtually into soldiers in order to force the public. I mean, if this was Bosnia or Croatia or the middle of the Second World War, we might understand it. But this is the United States of America. This is Oregon. What business does our federal government have turning weapons on their own citizens? That is just bizarre.
It reminds me of the Gestapo of World War II, where the
yes,
German...
it does. It reminds me of the Gestapo. Actually, it was the way when Hitler was just coming to power in like 1937, 1938. They were going through and starting to get the citizens into the Nazi Party, and if you didn't, they'd go out and shoot you. So I'm afraid it's looking worse and worse towards that kind of a.
Yeah, only now if you're a farmer or rancher and you're not doing what they want you to do, they'll line you up just like they did the Jews and eliminate you.
Yeah.
That's what it's coming to. Otherwise, why would they be carrying firearms? They're afraid of the citizens because they know they're pushing the citizens. How one American can do this to another one just boggles my mind.
Well, don't you recall, Mike, Anthony, and Ross, back what was it, a couple of years ago, or maybe more of that, when the President of the United States says he needs a civilian police force equivalent to the military, and what did the Homeland Security do? The operation of that, they ordered millions and millions and millions of rounds of .40 caliber ammunition.
Yeah, and everybody says, "What are they doing? It's obvious what they're doing. They're getting ready to declare war on the United States public."
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And the folks in Harney County are standing up to them, and the politicians and the pundits that disparage what those patriots are doing in Harney County are just contributing to the problem instead of helping to solve it. They're mind-numbed robots.
Yeah.
Well, also on the website, we're going to have Lou Dobbs, and he is talking to John O'Keefe up there, the head of the Oregon State Cattlemen's Association. And to be fair and balanced, about 8 months or a year ago, I made a phone call to Mr. O'Keefe because the people up there in Harney County was sucking up these conservation easements like a big power vacuum sucking up dust. And since they want us off, the government wants us off the land, they want us off the federal, they want us off the BLM. So what land is left? It is the private land. And we put it on the air I don't know how many times. But when we listened to that interview of Lou Dobbs with Mr. O'Keefe, it seemed like that was on for 6 minutes. And it seemed like that he was interested morely in conservation easements than he was protecting the citizens up there, the ranchers in Harney County. So we're going to put that on our website too, folks.
You bet.
It's all there, and we're
what we're seeing are battle lines being drawn here, folks. Everybody within the sound of my voice, pay attention to this. We're seeing the battle lines being drawn. People are coming down on one side or another of these very issues. And believe me, if you own property, I don't care if you live in town and you only got a quarter of an acre, or if you're running a ranch with hundreds or thousands of acres, you better pay attention, because there's a battle coming. It's already at our doorstep. And if you can't see that, you're going to get caught up in it, and you're going to end up on the losing end of it. You have to decide which side of this issue you're going to be on, and you have to get active about it. You have to stand up. You have to be belligerent. If you want to keep your land, if you want to do with it what you think should be done, instead of having someone else tell you what to do with it, you better wake up and come to the party. We are on the cusp of a battle.
Well, Mike, you're down there in Riverside. We've had a good conversation. When are you going to be back up this way?
Oh, I'll be back up in the spring when the snow gets out of there. I understand that the Modoc City, the Modoc County Fairgrounds, is going to be converted into homes for veterans. Is that have you heard about that at all?
Well, it has a smell about it, Mike. I'm a veteran. Everyone here in this room is a veteran.
So am I.
We're staunch supporters of the veterans. But what would happen out there at the fairgrounds potentially could end up low-income housing. And we got enough low-income housing as it is right now.
Well, that's part of the HUD program, Mike. They tried it before, and about a year ago, when they had the fair board meeting over at the fairgrounds, I attended that, and I had both of my cameras there, and I videotaped that. And when the supervisor over there, since the state of California won't give us enough money to maintain our fair, he had come up with some of the same thing, and that was over a year ago. And so I held up my hand, and the chairman of that board over there says, go ahead. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, what this supervisor has informed you is basically one of the things in Agenda 21. It's HUD, because they control the grants. They tell you how many people can go in. They tell you the ethnicity of them. And I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden he turned around and looked at my camera and says, well, don't you call me a communist. Don't you call me a communist. I says, I haven't called you no communist. He got so upset, he went and put his papers down and stomped out of that room, and that room was full.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, those are nice citizens over there in Surprise Valley. You know, Mike, that we've really taken an interest in Surprise Valley over there. You know that.
Uh-huh.
But now he's back to the same thing. And I got an idea where it's coming from, but I think the people in Cedarville will see right through this.
Well, there's another aspect that we need to pay attention to. Harney County, Oregon, has a population of one person roughly per square mile.
1.4.
1.4. Modoc County has a population of 2.2 per square mile. Is that maybe an indication of the target areas for control?
Well, that's what they do. In Modoc, it's been known for years that in the legislature in Sacramento that Lassen County and Modoc County are nothing more than welfare counties. But why are we welfare? because the same government, the federal and the state, took our way of making a living up here, our natural resources. They took our timber, our minerals. They run us off the land. Then they make us go poor. Then they want us to beg to the state for grants to keep us going, and that's what we're doing.
Who's promoting all the grants? The management of these counties.
Yep. Well, they're so used to it.
So what is their real agenda?
Amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You know, you were talking about the extra police force. Loretta Lynch, the U.S. Attorney General now, she was talking about the implementation of the Strong Cities Network, and that's what they're calling this new global police force. And they're doing it in all cities, and it's the proof that Obama made a statement when he was being sworn in or afterwards about having a better equipped police force in our military, better weapons and better equipment, and more people than the military. And this is, I think, the Strong Network is how he is implementing this.
I agree with you, Mike. And the original indication was some 4 or 5 years ago when we were, quote unquote, training Russian policemen in Washington, D.C.
Oh, the hell they were.
No, that's a fact.
Wow. Unbelievable. You cannot believe that our nation has turned to something like this so quickly.
Well, Mike, you've been on here, and we certainly appreciate it. Also, Big Mike, you know that we've been on the radio, and remember when we was the Modoc Independent Tea Party, and you was our secretary in that, and the local people who's causing the problems was saying that we was irrational, we were
Terrorists.
Oh yeah. That's one of the papers down here. Is his famous words.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, then they call us. We said we was fear mongering. Well, now you're welcome to the club. So you may be all of them now, Mike.
Well, I'm proud to be a member of this club. Let me tell you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anything left there, or other than that, we'll wind it up? Is there anything that you want to bring up real quick?
No, I don't have anything at the moment. Just appreciate people looking at the website. I wish you'd give me some comments. If you go to the website called, just write an email to liberty@thevoiceoffreedomradio.com. We have our own email there, and we can get more information from you and comments from you, whether you like it or you don't like it, or what you believe. And we're open to listen. You can call us at any time. It's the mode of
well, Mike,
aid will help people believe what's really going on. That's why we have so many videos on it of people who you trust and who you know and this kind of thing. So,
well, our hats off to you, Mike, for all the work on that website. It's a valuable tool for people. The voiceoffreedomradio.com. What you're doing is fabulous work, and you've got to know we all appreciate the time and effort you put into that, and keep it up.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate the kind words, but it's I'm a firm believer in what we're talking about in the Constitution, and I went in the Army for 3 years and made a promise. I swore that I would protect the Constitution, and I still believe in it. I think that oath lasts a lifetime. It isn't just when you're in the Army. So,
well, Mike, you're a true patriot. God bless you and your family. And you and I, we keep in touch quite frequently, along with Tony and Ross here. And we want to take and improve that website. And Mike, in your words, give everybody the address for that website, please.
It's the Voice of Freedom Radio, no spaces. Don't forget to put the Z in front of it or it won't come up. voiceoffreedomradio.com. If you want to email us, you can email us, excuse me, at liberty@thevoiceoffreedomradio.com.
Well, Mike, we appreciate it.
Our heartfelt thanks go out to you, Mike, for all you're doing.
Appreciate having you on, Mike. It's great.
Thank you very much, and back to you.
All right. Good day, Mike.
You too.
Doug, isn't it about time for a commercial?
Boy, you better believe, but wasn't that Mike Small?
Well, he's a true patriot, and there's no question about it, and an asset we dearly need.
And I'm sure that Cedarville over there is mighty proud of Mike Small, because he's been a shining example for many, many years in the Cedarville area. And the Cedarville people are good people. You're listening to the Voice of Freedom Radio. Our shows can be heard online at thevoiceoffreedomradio.com.
That's thevoiceoffreedomradio.com. You got to have it all in there.
Yeah.
Including the.
And on Saturdays after at 12 o'clock noon, right after Rush, you can hear us on KCFJ 570 AM. That's on every Saturday, 12 noon, right after Rush Limbaugh. But again, you can listen to our radio programs on the Voice of Freedom Radio Network, and just go there to the voiceoffreedomradio.com. Now, Tony, do you think you got it enough?
I hope so.
Isn't he something?
Tony, tell us more about where we're at as a country.
He don't even know where he's at now. Go ahead, Tony.
All right. It all goes, this property rights business all goes back to something that happened over 100 years ago. The American people were convinced that by well-meaning legislators that we needed to tax our property. And there's no amount of explanation that I could bring to the story to reinforce the idea that somehow somebody's property should be taxed. But it was a means of subjugating the people, and I'll explain why. The interesting thing is that whenever something is taxed by the state, then there's a maxim in law that says the rights to that property transfer automatically to the state. The term in law is escheat. It does sound like cheating. What happens is it makes the ownership of the property ultimately part of the state.
Absolutely.
We become, in the old Soviet Union, they made no bones about it. The state owned everything and they set it up front. Here they tell us, well, you still own your property.
We just rent it.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. By creating a property tax, we allowed the state to take title to all of our property.
That's right.
And when they have title to the property, that means they can repossess it. If you don't pay your tax bill, they'll take it back. And the law says that whoever ultimately can decide the disposal of property is the real and true owner. So even though you own that nice little home you're sitting on and that nice little piece of grass that you mow in the summer and plow in the winter, you're really just a tenant on that land. The government owns that land. The state owns that land. And so that is how the state justifies pushing the farmers and the ranchers around. It's not their property. The state owns the property. And the state knows it. We're the ones that are clueless. There are a lot of ways to raise revenue besides taxing personal property. That's one of the most egregious things that we ever agreed to in this country. Like everything else, out of our own ignorance, we volunteered into it. We should never have done it.
Well, Anthony, don't forget about permits. We have to get a permit to modify our home. We have to get a permit to drill a well. We have to get a permit to do a driveway. What is the definition of permit?
Control?
That means that I have to go ask the city, county, or state for their permission to do something with my property.
Only it's not yours, it's theirs.
And
And
it's
that's how they can insist on
and
its
it's
permit.
controlled.
That's what it comes down to. And we have sold our inheritance for a bit of porridge, folks. If you understand that biblical reference, you'll know what a tragedy it is. So just remember, we still, if we want to keep our property rights, we need to fight for our property rights. One of the things when I say the Pledge of Allegiance, I say at the end, with liberty and justice for all who fight for it. Because if you're not going to fight for it, they'll take it away from you. And they're trying real hard right now to do just that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close out this show, but we just need to reemphasize, put emphasis on the people that's up there in that wildlife refuge in Harney County. They are being demonized. They've been called everything in the book. Ladies and gentlemen, they are there. They don't want to start any fight. They're there to get national attention so that the light will shine in on Harney County and make it smell better. Plus, the fact is, the people that's up there basically know the same things that the Voice of Freedom Radio knows about what our federal government is up to. And they need to bring national attention.
They need your support.
Yes.
They need you to
get off the chair and write.
Call your congressman. Call your senator.
Tell them how upset you are with the way these men are being treated. They are heroes. They are not malcontents. They're not agitators, and they're certainly not terrorists. They are people who are trying to preserve your rights and mine. Help them out.
Thank you, Anthony.
Well, that sounded pretty good, didn't it, Ross?
Absolutely, but it's time to say goodbye for today.
It is?
I'm sorry, sad to say.
You are?
You got a speech to make, Doug?
Yes, I got a speech to say. God bless America. Get off your butts. Get on the phone. Write letters. Let's take America back. Until next week at this very same time, if I can ever get Anthony in here and Ross. What am I going to say now, Ross?
I don't know.
From Alturas, California, good day, America.
I got him trained, folks. Give us a call. Check out our website. All we are is freedom-loving people, and God bless all of you people out there. See you next week.